Hi folks, in this video we're going to do a head-to-head comparison of Transport Fever 2 versus Cities Skylines to see which game is better. Whether you're a Cities Skylines enthusiast or a Transport Fever 2 devotee, I can already hear the hair on the back of your neck stand up by just asking the question. Today we'll look at a number of similarities as well as the differences between the two games, and we'll do this analysis by using 8 comparators. Watch this video closely because it's your job to tell me if I got it right. Did I use the right comparators or factors to make the comparison? Did I reach the right conclusion? Is it even fair to try to compare these games? And oh, by the way, what's your opinion on the matter anyway? Well, that's a lot of questions. So if you want to get to the answers, let's watch this video and you tell me if I got it right. Let's get started. Smash that subscribe button below right now and click on the bell so you don't miss out on more great content. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Or just give it a thumbs up for yourself so that you'll always be able to come back and watch it again if you need to. The first basis of comparison will be the basic game concept. Cities Skylines is a city building game where you as the mayor of the city start, build, grow, and manage your city. You are responsible for the construction of all the city infrastructure, including roads, transit, water, power, and sewage, and so on. You also provide a host of other city services such as fire, police, education, cemeteries, which is gathering up the dead bodies, by the way. So the focus is on building the city infrastructure and managing the associated services. Transport Fever 2, on the other hand, is a transportation network building game. In this game, you're the owner of a transport company and your goal is to make money by transporting either people or goods. You create transportation networks to essentially support supply chain management of either cargo or passengers. You decide what networks to build and you select the mode of transportation for each network. So you decide whether a particular line will be transported by truck, train, or plane, and of course with people, you also have the option of buses. So the focus on this game is designing, building, and managing a transportation network. So right off the hop, these games are perhaps much more different from each other than they are similar when it comes to their basic concepts. Now let's look at some finer details. Our second comparator is city zoning. In Cities Skylines, you are the creator and in total control of where you place residential, commercial, and industrial zones. So in that sense, you're in control of how you shape the city. In Transport Fever 2, you're not in direct control of city zoning. In the free game, you are provided with a randomly generated map that has towns already created on it. These towns already have residential, commercial, and industrial zones already set up. How you fashion your transportation networks influences how a town will grow. So in Cities Skylines, you directly control zoning, and in Transport Fever 2, you merely influence the zoning. Our next comparator is building roads. Now I should come clean at this point by saying that I'm much more familiar with Cities Skylines than I am with Transport Fever 2. And I have never played the original Transport Fever. So I'm not sure if that makes me uniquely qualified or uniquely unqualified to perform the comparison I'm proposing today. I've only been playing Transport Fever 2 for about 75 hours, whereas I've logged over 700 hours on Cities Skylines, which by gaming standards isn't necessarily a lot either. So I certainly don't consider myself an expert in either game, but certainly have more familiarity with Cities Skylines. And I've played Cities Skylines using several mods, whereas so far I've only played the vanilla game in Transport Fever 2. But here goes. There seems to be much more precision when it comes to road building in Cities Skylines than there is in Transport Fever 2. Having said that, I have various mods such as the Traffic Manager Presence Edition, the Parallel Road Tool, and the Roundabout Builder. So a lot of mods I have are related to road construction and traffic management. So perhaps in that respect, it may be unfair for me to even try to make a comparison. But in Cities Skylines, there just seems to be a lot more focus and precision on road building. And certainly the modding community has provided a host of tools to make that happen. In the vanilla game of Transport Fever 2, road building seems to be a little bit of by guess and by golly. For example, if I wanted two roads to cross each other at 9 degrees in Transport Fever 2, it looks like I just have to eyeball it as best I can. Since I haven't gone into using mods yet in Transport Fever 2, I don't think I'm in a position to make the comparison. As a side note, if there are similar road building mods in Transport Fever 2, like in Cities Skylines, please note that in the comments below because I'm interested in trying them out if such a thing exists. Our fourth comparator is building rail. When it comes to setting up railway tracks and lines in Cities Skylines and Transport Fever 2, in my mind the two games are worlds apart. This is where Transport Fever 2 becomes much more intricate and complex, and I don't mean that in a bad way. In Cities Skylines, you basically lay down some track and set up your lines by connecting the dots, so it's a pretty straightforward process. If you've downloaded some additional assets, you also have the ability to select different vehicles, but that isn't key and central to gameplay. The different train assets are nice to have, but the game will run fine without them. For me, setting up railway tracks and lines in Transport Fever 2 is a much more complicated process and has a lot more realism to it. And I would add that it is necessarily more complicated because, again, the objective of the game is to build transportation networks, not cities. Now, I have to admit I'm still learning when it comes to setting up efficient train lines, but I will give Transport Fever 2 a gold star in this department. The process of setting up rail lines with signals and things like double diamond crossovers, and in general trying to make sure your trains don't run into each other, is quite impressive. I'm not great at it yet, but I'm working on it. In any event, in my opinion, Transport Fever 2 is much superior in this area, and it should be given the objective of the game. And this is just an observation. It feels like Transport Fever 2 is essentially a train network management game with aircraft, trucking, and shipping lines built around it. Our next comparator is air transportation. In Cities Skylines, you build both passenger airports and cargo airports. In both cases, you don't have any control on aircraft from other cities flying into these terminals. Depending on what DLCs you have, you may also be able to build things like blimp and helicopter terminals and set up lines respectively. In the free gameplay option on Transport Fever 2, similarly you can build either freight or passenger air terminals, and certainly a difference is that you explicitly determine what air traffic flies to each terminal. From what I can tell, your airports don't receive freight or passengers from aircraft that are off the map that you have control over. Also in Transport Fever 2, you select and purchase the aircraft you want to use, whereas in Cities Skylines it's not necessary. You can use the assets provided by the game. In Transport Fever 2, selecting the appropriate vehicle for the intended purpose appears to be key and central to the game. In Transport Fever 2, you also decide which lines to place that aircraft on so that you can make the most profit, which leads me to my next comparator, managing budgets. The sixth comparator is managing budgets. In my mind, this is where both games are quite similar. Both games have a budget managing aspect to them. In Cities Skylines, as the mayor, you are managing your city's budget and trying to make enough money from taxes so that you can provide city services and infrastructure. In Transport Fever 2, as the owner of a multifaceted transportation company, you are managing your company budget. There are only two ways to make money in Transport Fever 2 that I know of: transporting people or transporting freight. So your goal is to purchase vehicles and assign them to transportation lines to accomplish this task. In Transport Fever 2, you have to spend money to make money, and I suppose that's also true of Cities Skylines. Interestingly enough, both games have an unlimited budget option, which is a nice game feature to have when you're still trying to figure out the various elements of the game. An unlimited or infinite budget gives you the freedom to explore the game without having to abort due to lack of funds or bankruptcy. Our next comparator is the graphics experience. In my opinion, here's where there are some significant differences to the games. In Cities Skylines, you can't get a train engineer's view through the cab window as the train rolls down the tracks. Now, having said that, I believe there is a first-person mod in Cities Skylines that will approximate that view, although I have to admit I've never used it. On the other hand, with Transport Fever 2, getting a view from the driver's perspective is a built-in feature of the game. I gotta say, it's pretty cool to get that camera view, especially for aircraft and trains. This is a feature I really enjoy about Transport Fever 2. In Cities Skylines, the vanilla game allows you to zoom in fairly close. Another feature I like about Cities Skylines is how you can get a moving panoramic view of your city by simply clicking a button. It's like you're flying over a city in a helicopter and viewing it from out the window. If this feature exists in Transport Fever 2, I admit I haven't found it yet. Overall, for me, I find the graphic experiences to be quite different between the two games. I can't pick one game over the other on this aspect. Our 8th comparator is what I would call the overall feel of the game. So how would I categorize these games? Well, according to Steam, the first 5 popular user-defined tags listed for Cities Skylines are City Builder, Simulation, Building, Strategy, and Mod. For Transport Fever 2, the first 5 popular user-defined tags are Simulation, Strategy, Management, City Builder, and Trains. So even users of the games are sometimes using similar tags to describe these games. City Builder and Simulation are user-defined tags in the top 5 for both games on Steam. When it comes to winning the game, since they are both simulation games, it appears you can go on playing them as long as you like. In Cities Skylines, often city builders will start a new city because they were simply bored with the last one, or it had so many problems that it was time to start fresh with a new city. In Transport Fever 2, I have to admit I haven't played a free game scenario long enough to get bored with it, but I have wanted to start over again because of mistakes I have made, or I've simply learned how to do something better since I started that game. So in conclusion, we've looked at 8 comparators and putting Cities Skylines in a head-to-head competition with Transport Fever 2. So, which game is better? Well, as it turns out, in my mind, the premise of the question is simply wrong. Although there may be many similarities between the games, in my opinion, they remain fundamentally different in their core purpose. Cities Skylines is a city building game, and Transport Fever 2 is a transportation network building game. They are like apples and oranges. And remember that old saying about not being able to compare apples and oranges? Well, all said and done, I enjoy playing both games, and I certainly want to dive deeper into Transport Fever 2. So you tell me, did I use the right comparators in today's analysis, or did I miss something? Was I unduly unfair to one game or the other? Is there a major flaw in my analysis? There's only one thing left to do, and that's for you to tell me if I got it right. What's your opinion on the matter? Do you think one game is better than the other? And if so, why? Let me know by adding your comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you haven't done so already, smash that subscribe button and click on the bell so you don't miss out on more great content. Click on that box in the bottom left-hand corner right now to see a video you're almost guaranteed to love. This video was selected just for you by YouTube, and they know what you like, so what are you waiting for? Click on that box now, sit back, relax, and enjoy another video.